Horrible things are happening to innocent people, and such is the story of TT. But before we get into his story, if you are a fan of true life stories, do subscribe and hit notification button to be notified whenever we post a new story. This is how TT narrated his story. My name is TT, and the problem I'm facing now could make me do something horrible to someone or myself. When I started life, my business went well and so I am very successful. Whilst working, I met this young lady. I was interested in her and so I proposed to her, to which accepted, so we started seeing each other. But this lady doesn't allow me to sleep with her. Anytime I made the attempt, she would give excuses and never allowed me to sleep with her. I thought it was because I haven't married her properly, was the reason why she doesn't allow me to sleep with her. Due to this, I told my mother and uncle my intention to marry the lady, and they all agreed and commended me for wanting to do the right thing. So, they accompanied me to my lady's family in the church, and successful, the marriage ceremonies were done. But interestingly and surprisingly, my wife refused to allow me to sleep with her even on our wedding night and the night that followed. I got annoyed about what she was doing and demanded we returned home, cutting the honeymoon period short. Even when we returned, I knelt and begged my wife to allow me to sleep with her, and even after doing all that, she would never allow me to do it. I started wondering and asking her these questions: that, before we got married, you never allowed me to sleep with you, now that we are married too, you are not allowing me to sleep with you, what at all is going on, or is the problem? My wife would not answer. One day, when I was returning home from work, I parked my car at a place and I slept off. I woke up suddenly when I heard a knock on the windscreen of the car. When I lifted my head, I saw this young lady. She then told me that I had parked my car there for a while and wanted to find out whether all was well with me. I thanked her, but before she left, I had a little conversation with her and took her telephone number. Later, when I got home, I called to thank her again. Over time, I started calling this lady often whenever I wanted to chat with someone or I was feeling bored, because at home my wife doesn't bother me, she doesn't care about me. Because I was chatting and conversing with the other lady often, I developed love toward her and proposed to her, and she accepted. I then started having an affair with this lady, and not long afterwards, she told me that she was pregnant. All these whiles, my wife doesn't allow me to sleep with her. At that time we had married for 4 months, and I had not known my wife sexually. When the lady informed me about the pregnancy, I had mixed feelings. I was excited and sad at the same time, excited because I would be a father, and sad because I had cheated on my wife who was not allowing me to sleep with her. I then went and reported the issue to my mother. She was not happy, and so I told her the reason why I ended up with the other lady, and that was that my wife was not allowing me to sleep with her. I wanted my mother to accompany me to go and apologize to my wife for cheating on her, even though she was not allowing me to sleep with her. In fact, it was difficult for my mother to do, but she informed my uncle, and we all fixed a date on which the apology would be done. When the day of the apology arrived, my mother and uncle came to our house, and I started by kneeling before my wife and started apologizing to her for impregnating another lady, and I did that because she was not allowing me to sleep with her, and because I do not want her to hear it from someone else. I had brought my mother and my uncle to apologize to her, so she could forgive me. My mother also knelt to apologize to my wife on my behalf. Then I brought out a key to a car I had bought as a token of my apology to my wife, in addition to other items I bought for her. Till this point my wife was not saying anything, so my uncle asked my wife to respond to the apology and the items presented. My wife laughed and shook her head and said that I had cheated on her and had impregnated another lady, then she would also cheat on me by getting pregnant for another man, for me to know how it feels when someone cheats on you. My wife said this in front of my mother and my uncle. When my uncle asked why she gave such a response, my wife replied that was all she could say. My mother also reasoned with her, but she insisted that she would also cheat on me. My mother at this point got annoyed and left with my uncle. After this meeting, my wife doesn't talk to me. She wasn't relating with me already, but it got worse. However, I do what I must do as a husband by giving her housekeeping money and others. Some few weeks later, it became necessary that I travel on a business trip, so I left. While outside the country, if I don't call to check on her, she would not call, so occasionally, I would call to check on her to know how she is doing. 2 months into my journey, my wife called me to tell me that she had left some pictures and messages for me so I should go and look at them, so immediately the call ended, I went over to look at the picture and lo and behold, the pictures were my wife with another man in boxer shorts in bed. My wife had a towel around the chest. I quickly stopped watching the pictures and called my wife to ask her the meaning of those pictures. She then told me that, as she said she would cheat on me with another man, that is what she is doing, and she wanted me to see. I couldn't say anything except to thank her and ended the call. 3 weeks later, I returned to Ghana, but any time I wanted to ask my wife about the pictures she sent me, she would ignore me or give me a cheeky answer. Not longer afterwards, I noticed that my wife was pregnant. In fact, we have been married for 8 months now and I have never slept with my wife before. Now she is pregnant for another man. One day I mustered courage and asked her what was going on. She then told me that she had nothing to tell me at that moment. I then went and told my mother what was happening. The moment my mother came to the house, she also noticed that my wife is pregnant. I later went to my pastor and informed him of all that has transpired, and now my wife is pregnant for another man and I'm not happy about it. My pastor then told me to go and that he would talk to my wife and let me know the outcome. Sometime later, my pastor called and told me that they spoke to my wife, and she said before she could say anything, she wanted my mother and uncle to be around. So, a day for the meeting was fixed. When the day arrived, my wife's family, my family, and the pastors all gathered to hear what my wife had to say. When the opportunity was given to my wife to talk, she said, because I cheated on her with another woman, she had also gotten pregnant with another man for me to know how it feels when someone cheats on you. So, she is pregnant for another man. My wife said this in front of everyone and I wasn't surprised because, I have never slept with my wife before and after we got married. Finally, my pastor then told me that, it could be a temptation in marriage for me like in the case of Hosea in the Bible, who married a prostitute, therefore I should keep my wife in that regard. I have impregnated a lady outside marriage, but this lady doesn't know my house, therefore if my wife is pregnant for another man, then she must go and stay with that man to take care of her and not in my house. My family members then said that they don't want my wife in my house any longer and I agree with them perfectly, but my wife refuses to leave my house. I am now in a fixed, should I let my wife leave my house or stay to obey what my pastor said? What should I do now because sight of my wife makes me mad? My wife was introduced to me by a friend. Apparently, a man in her previous relationship had broken heart, so she had decided not to date anymore. However, she didn't reject me when I proposed to her, but it's now obvious that she never loved me but rather want to take her revenge from her previous relationship on me. It's also interesting to know that the day I knelt to propose to her with my ring in hand, my wife asked me to lie on the floor before proposing to her. It was a humiliation and not love. This is the true life story of TT. If you have any advice or comment, do leave it in the comments section below and don't forget to subscribe for more true life stories. See you in the next video.